today's TimTok here in the beautiful pines of Flagstaff, Arizona. Olaf is a client and a good buddy of mine from Colorado. He purchased a home with me in Sedona in 2021. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about real estate investing, what it looks like to own a second home and rent it out, and kind of we're going to go through the glitz and glam and also the harsh reality of what it's like really being in the trenches, and in fact why Olaf is here visiting this week. So before we get started, thank you for joining me on the ride today.
Thank you for leading.
Dude,
phenomenal ride.
We rode
Arizona
the
Trail.
Arizona Trail all the way from the north side of the peaks, Snowbowl, Arizona. We're up in the Aspens. It's epic. So Olaf, talk to me, dude. Getting into real estate investing, I know you have a few other properties. Sedona, what was your plan? What was your thought process? And walk me through that.
So Sedona is unique in many ways. I mean, not just because it's probably the most magical place on this planet, but also because it's out of state for us. So if I'm a handy dude and I like to be super involved, I don't use any property management companies. I don't use a lot of contractors. So the other two short-term rentals, which we all use, they're all like passion places for my family in Colorado. If something happens, I'm the guy. I drive there, I'll fix it. So our expenditure is pretty minimal on that end. Now, Sedona was a leap of faith because it's not just a short drive. It takes 12 hours to drive here or half a day to go by plane and then drive up from Phoenix. So it was an experiment, right? Can we make it happen? Yes and no. So shall I start with the good stuff?
Yeah, let's start with the glamorous side. So, you know, like I'm thinking of, because I've told your story to other people and how it's like Airbnb or short-term rentals have allowed people like you to essentially own a second home, which is a luxury that, you know, previously only the super affluent people could afford. Whereas now, and I don't know your financial status, but the fact that you have a second home in Sedona and it's being financed through basically Airbnb, they're paying the mortgage, right?
Yeah, I think there's two sets of expenditures, right? There's obviously you need the money for the initial down payment, and then you most likely will need the money to make the place look awesome, right? You have to furnish it, you have to do some landscaping, there's got to be all kinds of maintenance you probably have to do. So there's two sets of savings you have to move into with, right? One is the 20% down. The other one is maintenance, furnishings, and get it ready, right?
Right.
For the market, if you want to rent it, or for your own personal enjoyment. So that is coming out of your savings account.
Cash,
now,
liquid cash.
Liquid cash. Now, obviously, you can finance that too, right? But those interest rates are usually not very favorable. So ideally, right, you have that set aside, and a little extra cushion too, right? Just in case the unit or the home does not rent the way you want it to rent right away, right? So you definitely want to have a bit of a backup plan for that too, right? So then you put it on the market, and in a perfect scenario, it is in the right spot at the right price point. So there's a need that's being met, right? The demand is strong and the supply is not over the top yet, right? So that is what happened during the pandemic. So it was phenomenal. Like, it got booked out. We had a very modest price because we wanted to get some good reviews, and which we got. So it's a pretty place. It's cute. It's in an amazing location, right? But it's also like, it's a simple house, you know, works for us. It's great for a family. Or for a couple. It wouldn't be great for a bunch of friends that want to entertain and so forth. It's not big enough for that, but the location is amazing.
Oh, I mean, it's walking distance to Sugarloaf Trailhead. You're right in West Sedona. You nailed it on the location, and you really, you know, I've been over there a few times, and Olaf has done an amazing job setting it up and just getting the place rentable and so that it's attractive, you know, and initially, when he first listed it, the market was hot. I mean, it's the Wild West of short-term rentals in Sedona. You could make money hand over fist. It was nuts. And fast forward a little bit now.
Yeah, so in a perfect scenario, what it allows you to do is you get to enjoy it, you know, however many times a year, and at the same time, your ongoing payments, your mortgage, your insurance, your property taxes, your utility bills, any maintenance items are now covered by your short-term rental income. And in an even more perfect scenario, you have some money left over at the end of the season, and you can choose to either reinvest into your property, which I usually like to do, just sort of keep making it nicer year over year, or you stash that aside for some other plans, maybe for another rental property.
I'm more curious about, like, so all of that works. That's a machine
in a perfect world
that's all kind of working, and yeah, there's pitfalls and whatever, but for the most part, the revenue is strong enough
to cover your ongoing expenditures.
Correct.
Yes.
And so you're offsetting that mortgage, and you got in at a time where interest rates were crazy low.
3.25% for a second home.
And so that's a really good model and a very safe model. Now, what people often don't talk about on Instagram or YouTube is what happens when your water main springs a leak in the front yard, and you're looking at, you know, upwards of $20,000 in excavation and repiping. And let's talk about, and also you did a bunch of HVAC work too, right?
Yep.
So he's had some really big ticket items, and sometimes I get worried that, like, oh man, I should have found those things in the inspection period, or, you know, I should have forewarned him that this house was built so long ago that it has galvanized piping. Hey, Lauren.
Hello.
Come on, you got to come around here and be a guest on the show. This is TimTok.
Guest appearance.
This is my better half, Lauren, and she is also a short-term property manager and guru of all things rentals. So she calls herself what?
Glorified maid.
The glorified maid.
The glorified maid.
So
how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Have a great ride.
Well, just with short-term rentals, the plumber called and he wanted to get there early. I told him I couldn't be there till noon, but if you get home before then.
See, this is classic. Exactly what I'm talking about. We have a rental in Flagstaff. Plumber's coming. Now we got to cut the show short, guys. I got to go meet the plumber. Just kidding. But okay, yeah, I'll have a good ride.
Right.
Enjoy.
Love you. Okay, so back to the scary stuff that people that maybe aren't so handy need to really have a real conversation about. And what's the reality when shit hits the fan and you do have to call a plumber?
Yeah, and it's not just a plumber, right? But it's also like, what do you do with your reservations?
Right.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
So I think a couple of things to consider. A, safety cushion for those types of things, right? You don't want to freak out and feel like you have to now sell the place or something like that. So make sure there's a safety cushion set aside for unforeseen circumstances, you know, be it electrical or plumbing or appliances, or it could be any of those things, right?
Now, do you keep that separate from, because, you know, most people will have an emergency fund, rainy day fund for their personal expenses, but then, you know, if you're getting an investment property, do you create a separate account for that and sort of say, all right, I want to have 10 grand set aside?
For sure. Yeah, and actually we just started like completely separating all our rental properties from our own personal finances. So every single property sits in an LLC.
Yep.
So everything the you know, profit and loss is now managed by its own little sub entity, right? And if there's a surplus, then that gets saved for those types of instances.
Smart. And that also protects you from so many other legal
lawsuits,
ramifications,
liability. Exactly.
It just gives you an insulation. Limited liability corporation. It's also a really good way to protect yourself from tax burdens too, because Airbnbs are one of the most phenomenal tax write-offs in the world if you do it right. Yeah. So I guess I don't want to drag this thing on too long, but anything else? I'd love to hear maybe one thing you remember about the transaction when you purchased the home with me, and maybe one thing that you would say about just the overall short-term rental market in Sedona today, 2025.
Yeah. So I think that the market, you know, I'm by no means unique in my desire back in those days, right, to look for an investment property. So a lot of people, right, felt the need particularly brought on by the pandemic, low interest rates, the economy was strong, right? Everybody thought now is a good time, right? Airbnb was getting very popular, and so a lot of people did it, right? But so as the supply is increased, demand is not increased in the same rate. And now we are a couple ways past the pandemic, so the revenge travel trend has fallen off, right? People don't feel the need to make up anymore for lost time. So as supply increased, demand has dropped a little bit, and that naturally softens the market, right? Because there's just too much, right? So prices are coming down, coming down. So you just have to work harder, right? And you have to be a bit smarter, a bit more strategic in terms of how to market, how to look at your income, right? How to what to save for, what to be prepared for, when to use it too, right? I don't want it for myself now. I don't want to like book out the hot weekends, right? Like hot in terms of like, that's why I'm coming midweek. I'm here Monday through Friday.
Yep.
Because I don't want to, take over the weekends, right?
Yeah, you got to capitalize on those
income.
Those bookings. Yeah.
So it just, it forces you to be a little more deliberate and a little more conscious and a bit more smart about the way you strategize around it. One thing I remember when you and I worked together was that I think that ended up giving us the winning stance or the winning bid on the property was your idea about the contingency on what do you call that?
Due diligence?
No, it was the contingency on the property valuation. The
appraisal waiver.
The appraisal waiver.
We did. Yeah, that's right. 2021. I mean, gosh, I haven't even heard appraisal waiver in like years.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because it was such a crazy market, right?
I think
so. That gave us the upper edge.
Yeah, and we're gonna have to get Brianna on this show because I swear I remember this number. I think she had 11 offers on that home.
Wow.
I think
we offered just like 1,000 more or something. Yep. Right. Then was the asking price. But then we waived
the appraisal.
The appraisal up to a certain point.
Yeah.
Which is a risk, right? Because that means if it was coming low, I would now have to like pony up the difference, right? Between financing and what the appraisal did. Yeah. Fortunately for everybody, right, it came in right where we needed it with an extra 20 grand as buffer.
Dude, I remember that.
So financing was no problem. I didn't get into hot water with my savings and still have money left over to make it look cute. So
yeah, so we won the bidding war. I wasn't affiliated with Brianna at all. She was with a completely different brokerage. And now, whatever that is, 4 or 5 years. How long have you had it?
4 years.
4 years later, Brianna's working full time on my team. And it's just incredible. And the market is so different now, and that's a whole nother one. We're going to do a market update. Thank you for listening. And Olaf, thank you for jumping on here. I know it's awkward to like sit in a parking lot at a trailhead after we just smashed.
Anytime, Tim, anytime.
We just did such a good ride, you guys. And I'm like, wait, time out. Do this interview. So check you later.
Peace
Adios, dude. Thank you.
Let's go.
Time.